The Owl House. It's really hard for me to talk about this series, mostly because I'm not sure what I'm gonna say here that's gonna be doing the show any justice. You look out into the YouTube space and there's no shortage of people singing the show's praises in a way we haven't seen since the likes of things like MLP and Adventure Time. And while I have my doubts that anything I'll put into this episode is going to be any good in giving a fitting tribute to the show, sometimes you just gotta hope for the best and know that there will always be people there to back you up. Let's do this right. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am your ever-friendly Pokeprof, and welcome back to Fascinating Fiction. My first real exposure to the Owl House was back shortly after its first season had ended. This is when I was really starting to get into doing episodes for my little YouTube series here, and I wanted to be exposed to more media. I started watching more movies, anime, and cartoons based on recommendations from others and things that I have heard through word of mouth. I don't remember exactly when I joined up with Luz Noceta in her journey to the Boiling Isles, but it's one that I've cherished at every moment, both for the lessons it's given and the message it holds. From the very start of things, the Owl House is all about being different. Luz as a character is shown to be out of the norm with her unique way of viewing the world, often through the lens of her favorite book series. This gets to such a point and is seen as such a problem by normal society that she's encouraged to go to a conformist camp, learning to accept being just like everyone else. Anyone in that position would dream about being somewhere else, anywhere else where they can be someone special, the hero of their own story. And were this any other franchise, that's probably exactly what would happen. Instead, from the very get-go, we're introduced to the Boiling Isles, a dangerous place of demons, monsters, and creatures of all shapes that would sooner eat you than greet you with a smile. While initially staying on the Isles, wanting to fulfill her dreams of being a witch, Luz instead has to learn that not everything is going to be going along with her fantasies. It's this balance that makes the show amazing, because the message here isn't be different at the expense of everything else in your life. It's be different, but acknowledge the world around you won't always be willing to give in to those fantasies. The Boiling Isles at their core are a dangerous place, with the original concept of them actually being hell itself, something that even Luz alludes to in the first episode.
Am I in the bad place?
But even if this new world isn't anything like what Luz actually wants, she wants to remain there because it's still the most enjoyment she's ever had. And unlike her mother, as loving as Camila is, Ida and King both support the right to be weird. They allow Luz to be who she is without looking down on her or telling her she needs to change, all while teaching her lessons that she'll need to learn to help her adapt to both human and demon worlds, even if it's in her own Lucy way. And mind you, this is all something that is established as the focus of the show in the first 2 episodes, the first being the setup for most of this, and the second one being the episode that established just how unlike her young adult novels The Boiling Isles can truly be. The world isn't going to be a kind or gentle place, either in the human or demon realms, and Luz is going to have to keep her wits about her if she's wanting to survive in either. But it isn't just the weirdness that makes this show special when it comes to the characters. It comes to the fact that all of these characters are different from what's considered to be normal. We see that from the start with Luz, but every character in this series brings something different to the table than what you would expect from your normal protagonists. Willow is a big girl, having a body type that usually isn't shown off in any form of media unless it's to make a joke, and yet here she's just treated as normal. Hell, not just normal, but once her confidence is given a bit of a boost later on in the series, she actually becomes the powerhouse of the gang, being the most physically strongest of the group, as well as having such power over her plant magic that she could crush just about anyone else. But this only ended up happening after it was shown just where her skills lie when it came to magic. Willow was forced into something that she wasn't good at and forced to suffer ridicule and abuse because what she was learning was supposed to lead eventually into a fruitful career. It was only when she was allowed to go into something that she had interest and skill in was she allowed to grow and become a pillar of the cast. Gus is actually the youngest member of the entire cast outside of King, being moved up a couple of years in grades thanks to his skill in illusions. Already he's got the problem of not being able to fit in with the other students at school because of his younger age, but then you add in the fact that his brand of magic is considered lesser, as illusions can't affect you physically, and he suffers discrimination because of what he's good at. It makes him easy to take advantage of and something that he tries to move past as the series goes on. One of the most impactful moments of the show is where we get to see how Willow and Gus met up with each other, with her teaching him a method of how to deal with a panic attack after he found out he was being used by other students to help them get good grades. And this is just our initial gang of characters. This isn't even going into the growth of Ida from a zany con artist to a caring mother, King's search for his family and discovery of his origins, Amity's growth from a rival to a romantic interest, and Hunter, well, that's a bag of worms that honestly deserve its own video all by itself. I'll mark that down for when we come back to talk about the Owl House in the future. My major point here, though, is the fact that none of these characters are what you would call normal. From their looks, their personalities, their actions, and even with how they interact with their world, none of the characters go along with what the classical stereotypes you would see in other franchises. Then there's the actual plots of the episodes themselves. While there is some of the traditional flair that we're more than familiar with from other cartoons, like an episode where everybody switches bodies for a day, almost all of them try and teach lessons that we don't normally see. Let me point at the second episode of the series, which many people will agree is probably one of the weaker episodes as a whole, to make my point. The episode itself focuses on Luce, who has just decided to stay in the world of demons and is chomping at the bit to become a witch. She's so eager and excited that when she finds that she's having to work instead of going on some magical quest or being some special chosen one, she's disheartened. So when she's offered exactly that from a rather shady wizard, she goes head into things without even thinking. It's later revealed that the wizard and the entire magical journey she's been going on up to that point was a ruse from a demon who had a beef with Ida because her potions have been selling better than his. Because of it, he had lured Luce into a trap so that the Owl Lady would come and he would take her out, removing his competition. The episode alone teaches one thing that a lot of parents are always afraid of when it comes with kids, that they live so much in their fantasy worlds that they'll ignore everything real, and presents it while also giving us a fantasy world to enjoy. This also gives us one of my favorite quotes from Ida in the entire series, something that I don't think I've ever heard from any other cartoon or live-action series.
Look, kid, everyone wants to believe they're chosen. But if we all waited around for a prophecy to make us special, we'd die waiting. And that's why you need to choose yourself.
This is a real moment, one that goes against the grain of the magical worlds we get so often. For all the silly, over-the-top aspects that we get, the Owl House is willing to sit down with its audience and give them real advice, things that can help them grow and let them see the world anew. It looks forward to the future in many ways, and all of this in the second episode of the entire franchise. Of course, this isn't even touching the representation of the show. At this point, even my audience knows that Luce and Amity ends up together, what with them being my number 2 pairing from my top 10 canon couples video. But it's not just these two that are shown off in the series. Willow herself has 2 dads, something that is said front and center in the series. One of the major characters introduced in the series is Rain, who is not only an old romantic interest for Ida, but one who is both transgender and non-binary, using they-them pronouns. Even Ida's sister Lilith has been confirmed in interviews to be asexual a romantic character. None of these aspects are things that are the focus of their entire characters, or is something that the creators have dancing around trying to draw attention to it. Willow just has two dads. Rain just doesn't consider themselves a guy or a girl. Lilith just has no interest in a partner. It's just aspects of these characters, a small part of what makes them who they are, and the fact that this is the first cartoon to really be able to do that freely is amazing, wonderful, and a little sad all rolled up into one. And that's probably the thing that really makes the Owl House so special, why it hits so many people today the way it does. For all the magic, demons, and weirdness of the Boiling Isles, the characters and stories of the Owl House are more human than we've had in cartoons for a long time. All these characters have real issues, whether it's from simply not being understood, being placed in the wrong track at school, or just trying to figure out where they came from and how to move forward. And it's all done in a backdrop that involves demons, witches, and a dark emperor bent on destroying it all. This series is special, being ended too soon by Disney because they feel like it didn't fit their brand. In roughly 2 weeks, on April 8th, 2023, we will be getting the final episode of The Owl House called Watching and Dreaming. While the show didn't get to be what it wanted to be thanks to this premature end, the creator of the show, Dana Terrace, and her crew have said that they have done their best to give us a good ending, and that some of the things they thought up for this ending wouldn't have come around were it not the situations that they found themselves in. All I can really say, though, from the honest bottom of my heart, is this. Thank you, Dana, for everything you've done here. Thank you for letting us join Luce, Ida, King, and the others on this wonderful journey. Thank you for giving us a main character who doesn't fit the norm, who loves things like magical fantasy books and fan fiction, and goes out there to be her best self. Thank you for giving us the first same-sex couple in cartoons that are allowed to be just them instead of hiding behind closed doors or being forced at the end of the series like couples before them. Thank you for giving us a character that those of us who are on the spectrum of ADD, neurodivergent, or just move to the beat of our own drums can identify with. Thank you for sticking to your guns, fighting to have your characters be who they were meant to be, even when you were told no. Thank you, Dana Terrace, for giving us The Owl House, its wonderful adventures, and a cast of characters that we will all love for years to come. And I hope to see soon just what you will come up with next. With all that said, I hope I've done a good job to entertain you, and I'll do my best to do so again in the future. Hopefully you'll follow along with my content by subscribing and doing all the other things that gives us YouTubers life. If you wish to support me a bit more, I do have a Patreon where you can get access to bonus content. But until next time, stay frosty.